That intro kills me every time because, ladies and gentlemen, it is Taylor Hawkins in for Marc. Marc is a just phenomenal human being running for Senate here in the district, and so because of that, he's asked friends of his to fill in, as you know by now. My name is Taylor Hawkins. I get the joy of covering the Thursday segment, and I'm so glad you've joined us this afternoon. We've got a great show planned for you, some interesting guests and whatnot. But as usual, I'm going to jump right in with the news and topics of the day. It's just a beautiful day, this April 30th, and the news is hopping. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Chastity, you saw the king came to town. What'd you think of that?
Hey, it was great. I thought it was great.
It really is interesting and unique to see stuff like that happening.
History.
It is kind of history in the making. History in the making.
And we got some ice cream in the building.
We do, yes. We had a special guest, ladies and gentlemen,
so
just bring us some ice cream. I know that may not hit you the same way it does me since it's in our fridge. But maybe this is your sign. You need some ice cream, folks.
Absolutely.
But no, the British royal couple, the king did come to town, and it is interesting and unique. It's cool to see. And it's interesting even more, I think, what he said, because this is the first visit of a reigning monarch since Queen Elizabeth II visited in 2007. So it's kind of a big deal.
Sure.
And the goal of the trip, I think, was to strengthen alliances. There's a lot of global tensions right now. Trump has very much kind of put Europe on its back feet in a good way, I think, made sure that they know that we are not just the massive ATM of the world. We actually have some expectations of our allies, and I think that's a good thing. But in spite of the diplomatic notes on shared values, subtle context around Iran and other issues, I think it's interesting. A couple of things I wanted to highlight. First of all, just a funny note: Trump had a welcome planned for the king with Revolutionary War soldiers. There were U.S. soldiers dressed up in Revolutionary War garb in the Rose Garden, and I thought that was just hilarious because, I mean, the last time we had soldiers in Revolutionary War garb, I'm not sure we would have welcomed the king here. I'm just saying, but then Trump had some excellent words, I think, about our shared history, rooted in tradition and culture. I'm very much an Anglophile, if you will. I love a lot of things about British history, but mostly I love it because it gave us the backdrop for our country. It really gave us the shared values of Englishmen, the rights of Englishmen, and it is out of that British common law tradition that the value structure and the legal structure for America came into being. And that's a very good thing, and I'm glad that President Trump said that. Then the king went before Congress, and I thought had some good words to say. There was, I think, a dramatic irony of National Democrats who've been joining this so-called No Kings protest and No Kings literature around, trying to spread the divisive rhetoric that Trump is somehow some kind of dictator. So there is an irony to those people shouting No Kings for whatever it's been 6 months into the No Kings protest. They stood and clapped their hands off for the only king in the world that matters. I just thought that was hilarious. But then the king went on to talk about some shared values, which was good. But he first said that Christianity was a firm anchor and an inspiration. But he then went on to share some babble about interfaith relations. And I will say here, it's important to note, I think, that current modern-day Britain, the way we should be looking at it is as a cautionary tale. There's almost nothing that Britain has done in the last 30 years that is admirable. Almost nothing that they've done that we should follow. Their economy is in the tank. They have absolutely no sense of personal identity as Englishmen anymore. They completely allowed the leftist DEI immigrant first sort of narrative to co-opt their ability to even have a personal national identity, which is very sad to see for such a once great nation. And now 15% of their 50%, over 50% of their capital city in London are folks who were not even born in the United Kingdom. I think if 50% of the residents of Washington, D.C., 50% of the residents of New York City were people who were not even born in the United States, we would have a problem with that, and I think the Brits should have a problem with that as well. They also have a nation in crisis when it comes to religious affiliation. I mean, only 9% of the country attends any kind of religious service at all on a semi-regular basis. So the King's words on Christianity as a firm anchor and an inspiration really kind of were more of a hat tip to past tradition than they were to today. I think only 3 or 4%, if I remember the statistic correctly, of Brits aged 18 to 34 would even affiliate with the Anglican Church, the Church of England, which was once by far and away the dominant Christian denomination there in the UK. So their nation is in decline for sure. If they joined the United States, it was a really interesting man on the street style video I saw recently. If they joined the United States, the guy who was hosting it was asking Brits, where do you think you would place in the lineup of states in terms of economic output? Some people were, saying top 10. Some people were saying, well, maybe behind, this state or that state. Folks, it's actually 51st. They would be dead last in terms of their economy, their GDP per capita, if they joined the United States. And I laugh because it's funny, especially as compared to what their expectations were. But that is actually a sad thing. It's actually a sad thing. So we can enjoy the pomp and circumstance. We can watch the king, come over here. But I think the broader worldview implications of noticing what is happening on a global stage, noticing the fact that other nations around the world, even those that were once the greatest nation on earth, is really important. It's important to notice the things that are going on. So again, Great Britain has a lot of shared values, a lot of shared history. It used to be a great nation, and I hope it is once again a great nation in the future. But I think in order to do that, they're going to have to return to the values, the traditions, and the cultural identity that made them great in the first place. Another interesting thing, I think it is very important, this is a political note. And folks, you're listening to the Marc McMain Show. My name is Taylor Hawkins, in for Marc on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Is the Supreme Court decision that was handed down not all that long ago. This week, the Supreme Court handed down a decision in the Calais case, which ruled that Louisiana's creation of a second majority black congressional district was unconstitutional racial gerrymandering. And this decision is incredibly important because there has been an interpretation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which made it incredibly hard for southern states to draw districts, and they had to delicately do so, making sure that there were some drawn on the basis of race to ensure minority representation, etc. And it just threw a monkey wrench into how the South handles congressional apportionment, congressional redistricting. And it was not a positive thing at all. It was not, by any means did it conform to Martin Luther King Jr.'s sentiment on judging people on the value of the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. If we look at a person as a voter and say the most important thing about you is the color of your skin, that is inherently racist, is it not, Chastity?
Oh, it's terrible.
It's something that should not happen, and the Supreme Court recognized that, essentially saying redistricting is okay. Doing so on the basis of partisan goals, partisan ideals is acceptable. But what we cannot do is go directly against the implicit nature of the Constitution and actually racially gerrymander. So the interesting thing is the application of this and what it's going to mean for the South. Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, complained in his press conference yesterday, we're now at a point where affirmative action is gone, diversity is gone, equity is gone, inclusion is gone, just this divisive rhetoric. And I thought when I was listening to it, well, you don't have to convince me of how awesome it is. I already think it's a great ruling.
Right.
Because, of course, folks, all of those things, affirmative action, diversity, equity, inclusion, these talking points are not actually accomplishing what they say they're accomplishing. They're racially divisive. They are damaging to individuals and to our nation, and I am very glad to see that kind of era at an end, yes, at least with regard to redistricting. So what that means for the South is that we're going to have new maps drawn in the very near future. Florida actually just passed their map yesterday, their recently redrawn maps, which will add 4 seats to the GOP in the U.S. House of Representatives if they are confirmed and if they continue to move forward, which I believe that they will. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. So Louisiana was the state that was actually under advisement in this case. They were the state at issue. And so they are now going to redraw their maps because as a result of this decision from the Supreme Court, which struck the maps down and struck down the whole concept of racial gerrymandering, they said in a joint statement, the Attorney General and Governor of Louisiana, now that their current districts cannot be used to carry out the primary after the Supreme Court ruling. So the governor said, quote, "The state is currently enjoined from carrying out congressional elections under their current map, and we are working together with the legislature and the Secretary of State's office to develop a path forward." Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves also announced that a mere 21 days after the Supreme Court decision, their state legislature would also return for a special session to talk about redistricting and eventually to produce new maps. So overall in the South, there are at least 12 majority-minority districts that are currently Democrat-controlled that could completely shift, or those districts even potentially disappear or be absorbed into other districts if every state redraws their map to reflect normative redistricting principles. Now, in case you're wondering if that's going to affect us here in Georgia, folks, it is not in terms of this midterm election, for better or worse, because the Purcell principle from Purcell v. Gonzalez in 2006 actually says that we can't change an election in process, and it's a good procedural barrier to make sure that people don't have like the whole election map reshaped right out from under their feet. But what that means is that only a few states are actually going to be able to change before the midterm. So Mississippi is going to, Louisiana is going to, Florida is going to. There's a chance that Alabama will. I don't think any other state, if I remember correctly, is actually in a position to do this before the midterm, just given that principle, which means that they can't change if they're already in process. Here in Georgia, our elections are already in process. We've already got voting underway. Quick public service announcement, by the way. If you're listening to this show, please do make a plan to go vote. Early voting has already opened. We're in a crucial election cycle, and there are some great candidates out there that will make for some really fantastic leaders. So please do make a plan to go vote. You can find your sample ballot, that is the ballot that shows you who you will be voting for, at the Georgia Secretary of State My Voter page. So just go Google Georgia Secretary of State My Voter. You can put in your information, and then it'll spit out a sample ballot for you, and you can take a look, analyze, and then do your research, which I'd always encourage everyone to do. In the upcoming weeks, I think we are even going to have on some folks who are vying for your vote, and that's a good thing. Later on today, we're going to be talking to County Commissioner here in Walton County, Lee Bradford, who's a friend of mine, and he's done some awesome things here in the state. Next week, Lord willing, right now the current plan is to have on Congressman Mike Collins, and as well as the person who has given it a great run for his replacement, Houston Gaines, currently a state legislator here in the state, who is running to replace Mike as Mike leaves and runs for U.S. Senate here in Georgia, and as Houston steps up to replace him in the congressional seat. So please do join us next week, folks. But as I was just saying, that the important thing to take away is that the whole state of play for the political scene nationwide is going to shift on the basis of this Supreme Court ruling, and it is as important now as ever to be politically involved, to be engaged, and to make a plan to go vote. So again, early voting, if you are listening to this radio show here in Georgia, early voting has started. Please do make a plan to go vote. The worldview implications of this, by the way, I think it is a good thing to remember that the biblical principles that we take throughout our lives actually do apply in real-world scenarios and in political scenarios, and I love talking about that kind of thing, folks. So if you'll bear with me for a minute, I'm going to talk about that. The Scripture does call for justice without partiality, and specifically without partiality based on ethnicity or class, and it is that principle, and the reason that's important is because that principle has only truly had fruition here in the United States. In every other nation across the globe, class distinctions, ethnic distinctions have been enshrined throughout their legal systems for hundreds or thousands of years. And so the important thing to remind ourselves of is that treating race as the primary lens for representation risks dividing people rather than pursuing what we should have, which is colorblind equity under the law. That is what we should have. Completely blind treatment that is just and that is equal regardless of what the color of someone's skin is. And so I think all image bearers of God deserve equal protection, and I think any policy that elevates group identity over actual individual merit undermines the biblical view, which is unity in diversity, which is an amazing thing. We should realize that everyone around us is an incredible, eternal being that has personal value. And anytime someone tries to make someone else's racial identity the central theme of it's so dehumanizing.
Sad.
It really is sad. It really is sad. So I think this is a fantastic ruling, and I think we're going to be able to see positive effects from this for decades to come. Folks, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break, pay a few bills, and we'll be right back after this.
Hey, this is that Rick Jackson spot.
Too often, criminal illegals commit sick, violent crimes. Do that when I'm governor, and you'll end up deported or departed.
Dang. I know, right?
What do you have, sugar?
I'll take the meatloaf and Rick Jackson for governor.
He's something, ain't he?
He's tough.
Yeah, no tolerance for criminal illegals, no DEI.
No covering up for do-nothing career politicians either.
You know, Jackson came from nothing and built one of the biggest businesses in Georgia.
Now he wants to cut the income tax in half and freeze property taxes.
Yeah, but not for deadbeats.
Listen, I love this part.
No more free rides for people who refuse to work. You want to sit on your butt, binge watch Netflix, and scarf down Cheetos? Do it with your own money.
Be still my heart.
Bingo.
Amen to that.
Rick Jackson for Georgia, not a career politician. Paid for by Jackson for Governor, Inc.
Storm damage can shorten the life of your roof, and here at Joshua 19 Roofing, we make sure your home stays protected. We're more than just a roofing company servicing Georgia. We're committed Christians called to serve God by helping others. After this year's wind and hailstorms, we've helped dozens of homeowners just like you start the insurance process for a full roof replacement. Visit Joshua19roofing.com or call 770-701-9970 to schedule your completely free roof inspection and mention the Marc McMain Show for a $150 credit towards qualifying roofs.
As spring blooms, so does engagement season. At P&A Jewelers, voted the area's best jeweler and jewelry store, and celebrating 50 years, we offer a beautiful selection of engagement rings. Let us custom create exactly what your heart desires. Visit us in person next to Quick Trip in Loganville or online at shoppajewelers.com. P&A Jewelers, where your forever begins.
Welcome back to the Marc McMain Show, folks. This is Taylor Hawkins, your host, in for Marc McMain on this beautiful Thursday, April the 30th. Going to jump right back into hitting the news and topics of the day. One thing I wanted to highlight real quick is something I saw on the platform X, which is an excellent platform for running across things like this. Very important issues that face our society. And it is regarding an MRI study on kids and the effect of screen time in young children. So a recent report featuring Professor Mike Nagel is raising alarms about screen time and very young children, and it centers on this striking MRI study of kids specifically ages 3 to 5. In this study, the researchers were scanning the kids' brains, and they found that higher levels of screen time were actually associated with reduced development of white matter. So that's the part of your brain that's responsible for communication between regions. And the reason that's important is because this development of this aspect of your brain is essential for language, for literacy, and for cognitive skills. In simple terminology, that just means that it helps the brain wire together properly. And according to this report, the more screen time exposure children had, especially interactive screen time like tablets or iPhones, the greater the decline in these critical brain connections. So he talked about the fact that this white matter, this myelin, to use its technical accurate term, acts like insulation on electrical wiring. So if any of y'all out there understand the process of electrical wiring, you sheathe copper wiring or other kinds of metal wiring to increase the conductivity of electricity that wire has. And in the same way, your brain kind of sheathes the neurological pathways with this white matter, which again allows greater cognitive and language literacy development and communication between regions. And so the eye-opening point that they were making is even around 2 hours a day of screen time. And I would argue that unfortunately in this day and age, 2 hours or less is the exception, not the norm for kids. So many people are using tablets and iPhones to babysit their kids, basically. And to a certain extent, I don't blame them. It's an easy fix. But to another degree, I do, because we have to be realizing the way that actually damages your child. And it's very important. It's very important. So only 2 hours a day of screen time showed a measurable difference in brain structure tied to language development. The report connects this to broader trends, rising mental health issues, sleep problems, etc. But I think the big takeaway for this, for the experts who were conducting this study, is pretty direct. For young children, especially under 5, screen use should be extremely limited, if not avoided altogether, because those early years are when their brain is developing the fastest. It's going to be absolutely critical for teaching them literacy skills in that crucial years of 5 years old to 8 years old, for the rest of their academic success, and for the rest of their life. They're going to be living with the consequences of how their brain was allowed to develop at ages 0 to 5. So this is not just about behavior or attention spans anymore. The concern is that heavy screen use may actually be shaping the physical development and potentially cognitively impairing the brain structure. Now, again, this is not to say that kids who had phones when they were young should say "woe is me" and be trapped in a victim mentality about what cards they were dealt. But it does mean that as parents, people should be very careful how they allow screen time to impact their children. Another thing in the broader context of our international scene, if you will, is that there are continuing ongoing tensions in the 2026 Iran conflict, including disputes over the Strait of Hormuz, and those are continuing to drive oil prices up. Unfortunately, we saw them open at about $120 a barrel today, which that's the highest since 2022. And the president, I understand, is receiving briefings now on potential new strikes or other actions to pressure Iran to reopen the shipping lanes amid the stalled ceasefire talks that have taken place and the nuclear concerns that are apparent. So it's really interesting to see this conflict continue. I actually personally have a decent amount of faith that the administration is doing the right thing here. I think what we've seen is the decimation of the world's leading sponsor of terror, decimation of their ability to create and fund that terror on a national and international scene. We've seen their nuclear program in shambles, which is a good thing. Not completely destroyed, as has been falsely reported before, but it's definitely in shambles. We've seen so many of the administration's goals with regard to this war have already been attained, and I think if the administration can find a safe exit over the next couple of weeks that leaves Iran not in control of the Strait of Hormuz, I think we're going to be in a very, very good place. The internal structure of the Iranian regime right now is in vast disarray. They are in a state of collapse, essentially, because of the lack of funding that the shutdown and the ceasefire during the ceasefire have caused, and that's a good thing as well. I think Christians should wrestle with the fact that the government's role in bearing the sword for justice and protecting the innocent means that we should pursue peace wherever possible. So that means that just because President Trump and this administration instigated this action, they did so on the basis of credible reports of the direction that Iran's nuclear program was heading and other things. And I think it's very important to realize that we are insulated in the West and in the United States in particular from these kind of international conflicts. And we should realize that sometimes, in fact, I would argue all the time, peace through strength is a necessary thing to pursue. And sometimes that does entail striking first. And so I think that history will look back upon this episode favorably, but I'm very, very cautiously optimistic about that. So let's be in prayer, however, for the way that our nation is handling this Iran conflict. And I know we're all hoping to see cheaper gas at the pump and to see that cost of oil come down. So let's definitely be thinking about that, be thoughtful about that. Another thing that will probably impact your prices is the fact that the UAE, the country of the UAE in the Middle East, is going to permanently leave OPEC starting May 1st. Now, the UAE is a major producer. They're actually the third largest producer of oil in OPEC. And this move is more driven by economic diversification strategy. So for those of you who don't know, for context, OPEC is an oil cartel that exists to put up artificial upwards pressure on oil prices by reducing how much their member nations can pump. So theoretically, they're to reduce some volatility in the market, but practically speaking, that is why they exist. Well, some other context is that with fracking and horizontal drilling and other modern technical developments, the value of OPEC to their member nations has been drastically reduced. And once this war is over, the demand for oil is going to be huge. So this move will actually give the UAE better flexibility and more profit in the long term. And it will also look like more oil, more readily available, more quickly. So I think this is a tremendously positive news for the United States, and specifically for just normal consumers as we look at what are the implications for the cost of oil going to be in the near future. Another thing that is important to note is that, as we talk about worldview implications of policy and, why should the normal person care about politics, folks, we are still in the middle of a government shutdown. This partial shutdown that the Democrats, National Democrats, have forced on Republicans because of their absolute refusal to fund basic border law enforcement is still going. We are now months into this partial funding shutdown, the lapse in the funding for the Department of Homeland Security. And this comes up again today because the U.S. Coast Guard is now facing severe operational strain. Their emergency pay funds are about to run out in the next week or two. And what that means is that non-essential operations, quote-unquote non-essential operations, have been very much curtailed. We're looking at massive utility shutoffs, and the readiness of the U.S. Coast Guard is eroding. So it's one of those things like the squeaky wheel gets the oil. We don't know how many wheels on this bus are going to be squeaking until some of them start falling apart. And I'm hopeful that National Democrats will start to feel the pressure as this election cycle continues to fully fund DHS, because we really need it. We really need it. So active duty members of the Coast Guard have been paid, but civilians and overall funding have been hit very, very hard. Over 100 days of shutdown conditions in recent periods mean that just doing the normal things, doing the regular operations well, have been very tough for the U.S. Coast Guard, and I'm just worried about what this is going to look like. As we look down the road to the future, all of these pieces of our national defense work smoothly behind the scenes, so many days, and we don't actually know what it looks like to have real threats materialize on our own shores. But that is because of the finely tuned operation that the U.S. Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security are. And I worry about what it's going to look like. Folks, you're listening to the Marc McMain Show. This is your host, Taylor Hawkins. One more quick thing before we head to a commercial break I wanted to talk about, and that is that the United Kingdom. We talked a little bit about the Great Britain and their parliament, their political structure a little earlier. They are now considering for the, I forget if it's the 5th or the 6th year in a row, a continual pattern of bills have been brought up in the United Kingdom to legalize and expand medically assisted dying. And what that is it's physician-assisted suicide. It's euthanasia. And it's just horrific to see. If you look across America, actually, there are 9 states who have legalized it, and across the globe, euthanasia is now becoming a normal thing. Canada, our neighbors to the north, there are 3 times as many people killed by government-allowed physician-assisted suicide in Canada as there are dogs killed or put down, if you will, by the pound. I mean, that's just a sick place to be. Human beings should not be playing God. And this, again, the United Kingdom used to be the most powerful. The British Empire was the most powerful nation in the world for so long. They set the tone for what an international order would look like. They brought justice around the world to places that had not had roads or legal systems or economic opportunity, and to see them now on the back end of their downward spiral, now focusing more effort and intentionality, if you will, on legalizing assisted dying instead of on making their nation great again, is incredibly sad. Human life bears God's image from conception all the way to the point of natural death. And I believe that assisted dying is absolutely morally not only wrong, it's incomprehensible for a good nation, for a nation with moral norms. True mercy involves care for the weak, not hastening death. And I think this is another policy of what has come to be called toxic empathy. Would highly recommend, if you're interested in this subject, looking up Allie Beth Stuckey and her new book called Toxic Empathy, because it's so important to not allow your own emotional predispositions to be weaponized in a policy conversation. That's why public policy is tough. And that's why we need people who step up as public servants to analyze these things and very carefully make decisions on behalf of the people they represent. And it is sick to see people's emotional predisposition to feel sad for someone in suffering shift instead of shifting towards how can we help this person, how can we give their life value, to shift away from that to, well, the best thing to do is to end your suffering and just kill yourself. That is a very, very sad thing to say, and a sad place for British society to be at. So I say that because it is a warning to our nation that once great nations can slip very quickly into a downward spiral. So, folks, it's not all going to be bad news. We're going to get back here after this short commercial break with an awesome interview with a great guest of mine, Lee Bradford, who's a local guy, a local county commissioner here in Walton County. And we're going to talk about some public policy that has real impact in a positive direction for your wallet, for your pocketbook, and local politics is a great way to get involved and stay engaged. So come back after this short commercial break. You are listening to Taylor Hawkins. I'm hosting the Marc McMain Show on WMOQ. Come back and see us right after this.
I chuckled at a cartoon that showed a news conference by a United States senator who announced that he was divorcing his family so he could spend more time with politics. We may laugh, but the truth is many people make that statement every day. Maybe not with words, but with their actions. In fact, if a politician retires from his work to spend more time with his family, it becomes the lead story, met with cynicism on the evening news, while the one who rejects his family advancing his career is commonplace. God tells us we should work hard to the glory of God. But he has clearly shown that we must have priorities. A relationship with God first, and family follows that. What does your focus tell you about your priorities? The Bible says that we have brought nothing into this world and we can take nothing out of it. It's good to focus on the things that last, like putting God first, and then family, and then people all around us that God loves. This is Bryant Wright, speaking right from my heart.
Visit rightfromtheheart.org and click television to watch our TV spots.
Storm damage can shorten the life of your roof, and here at Joshua 19 Roofing, we make sure your home stays protected. We're more than just a roofing company servicing Georgia. We're committed Christians called to serve God by helping others. After this year's wind and hail storms, we've helped dozens of homeowners just like you start the insurance process for a full roof replacement. Visit Joshua19roofing.com or call 770-701-9970 to schedule your completely free roof inspection and mention the Marc McMain Show for a $150 credit towards qualifying roofs.
I'm conservative Doug McKillop. When Rhino Republicans face pressure from Democrats, they fold. Not me. I went to battle with Stacey Abrams and won, ending barbaric late-term abortions in Georgia. It made me the radical left's #1 target in the state, and it cost me my House seat. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Would I do it again? Absolutely. My name is Doug McKillop, and with your vote, I'm ready to take on and defeat the radical left Democrats. Paid for by Doug for a conservative Georgia.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Marc McMain Show. I'm your host, Taylor Hawkins. Today we're joined by Walton County Commissioner Lee Bradford, who's a local leader helping guide one of the fastest growing counties in Georgia. We're going to talk about his background. We're going to look at maybe what's driving growth in Walton County and how he is working to balance development with preserving the character of the community. So, Commissioner Bradford, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, first, I'd love for folks who may not know you yet, who is Lee Bradford? Give us just a little bit of your background.
So, Lee Bradford lives at 3667 Old Monroe Madison Road. A little over 20 years ago, when I asked for my wife's hand in marriage, they asked me would I consider building a house out there. They didn't tell me yes until I told them yes. But my wife had never lived anywhere else. I'm not going to tell you how old she is because, I don't want to. That'd get me in a lot of trouble when I get home. But she's never lived anywhere else. Her mom's never lived anywhere else. So when we built our house out there, she moved from one side of the pond to the other. And that's sort of grown into our daughter Bella Rose, Ellie Kate, and our little boy Hudson Lee.
That's awesome. Now, Bella is actually here with us in the studio, and I've been reliably informed that she's the favorite child. So I don't know how the other kids feel about that, but Bella, glad to have you here as well. So what led you into public service at the county level?
So I came up in public safety. Like, I started back at the sheriff's office in 1998. Then that grew into a career in the fire service. And then, of course, it grew into environmental compliance and safety with an erosion control company and things of that nature that I own. But it was mainly wanting to make sure that people that, no matter their last name, that if they were a county resident, that they had a voice. That was really important, because when I first moved here, they're like, you ain't from here, are you? But then when they figured out who my wife was, they're like, oh, you're the twins' husband. And I'm like, welcome. So it was sort of, and there's so many people that have come into the county, and I've just always wanted to make sure everybody had an equal voice and an equal opportunity to speak up and make sure that it's heard.
We're actually talking about that at the beginning of the show when we were talking about the impact of the new Supreme Court decision and making sure everybody's got a voice and that it's equal regardless of your identity. That's a very important part, from local politics all the way up to national politics.
Sure, inclusion is really important.
It is for sure. Now, do you think, was there a particular moment or an issue that pushed you specifically to run for the commissioner seat?
It was just wanting to get involved in the community and make sure that I'm not much of a sideline guy. Like, I don't like sitting back watching. I like getting involved and making a difference. That's how I've always been.
That's awesome.
That's the same thing. Like, you can sit back and be like, hey, I really would like to go over there and help them. And, I don't want this family being mean to the family next door. Well, I got involved in public safety. So you're able to get out there and, you change people's tires. Public safety is not about writing a lot of tickets or doing that other stuff. It's about actually out there serving the community and helping people.
Do you think there's a misunderstanding about that? Do you think there are people, maybe even in this part of the country, who look at, either local or state level positions of influence and the elections that they're running for as kind of just another title on the wall, as opposed to an ability to serve their constituents?
I don't want to speak for anybody else, though. I'll tell you, for me, I don't believe in titles. I never have. It's sort of like, hey, you see some work needs to be done, get out there and do it. That's sort of the route I've always taken with that. But titles have just never been my thing. My title I was given at birth, and that's Lee Bradford.
I really like that. I do, Lee, because, I'll be honest, I think there are a lot of people who seek positions before they've actually done the work. I think instead of seeking the title, then doing the work, I think people should be willing to do the work, kind of get out in the community, make sure that whatever they're asking for, if you're asking somebody to trust you, with their vote, then there should be a pattern of decisions made, a pattern of involvement, right, that backs up what you're saying.
Sure, absolutely. So one of my, things that I've always thought about is you can live in a community, you can live on a community, or you can be part of a community. And in our household, we choose to be part of the community. Bella, she really is, like, I never would have imagined years ago that my daughter would be my best friend. I never would have imagined that when we found out that we were having a child. But that's what she's grown into. Like, when we go to citywide cleanup, say in Social Circle, Bella and my daughter Ellie are always with me. They go and we pick up trash in the community and just show that we're involved in it. There's so many things like the Dawson Masonic Lodge, that I'm a member of in Social Circle. We do a lot of community and charity work there, but, we have chicken barbecues to raise money for the community. My daughters show up and they help us with that.
It's so great to be able to bring your family along, and like you said, to be your kid's best friend. That's pretty special.
But they're part of it, though. That is our next generation. So they're going to learn what we show them. Like in our household, we're going to show them how to be involved in the community and serve.
That's very important. Folks, you're listening to the Marc McMain Show. I'm your host, Taylor Hawkins, and we are talking to Walton County Commissioner Lee Bradford over District 4 in the southern part of the county. Lee, what do you think, what were your early influences, either at family, mentors, leaders, the people that kind of shaped your values?
So is my dad. My dad's a World War II veteran. You got to figure that he was 54 when he had me, and he turned 55 the next month. Thank goodness, that he wound up keeping me along and, helping me grow. My mom was never really there much growing up, though my dad was always there, and it was just sort of, he didn't like saying anything twice. But he had hardcore values, and the main thing I'll never forget when I moved out. I was 17 when I moved out of the house. I graduated high school, moved out of the house. And he's like, boy, you'll be more successful than you can ever be if you do just one thing. I said, what's that? He said, do what you say you're going to do. I'm like, well, Dad, that's what we've always done. Like, there's not anything other than that, is it? He said, there's really not, but as you grow older, you'll come to find out a lot of the people around you don't. He said, so if you continue to do as you say you'll do, you'll be fine and be more successful than you can imagine.
It really is important, and that's one of the things that people have kind of abandoned. That I mean, there's still a lot of words in the culture spilled about that, but there's not a lot of character to back it up. Because at the end of the day, that is expressed out of your character, out of your personal integrity, and you can say that you do that, but it's another thing to actually live it out. Especially, it's getting rarer and rarer these days, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, but that's one of the things Bella reminds me consistently. It's like, hey, Dad, we said we're going to do this. This is on the calendar. This is where we're going to be at. This is what we're doing. So it's pretty neat to see your children reminding you of things that you've instilled within them, and then they live their lives that way as well.
Now, we've talked a lot about community. What does community mean to you in a place like Walton County?
Community in Walton County is it's broke up by a lot of different areas. You have what would be considered a Loganville community. You have what would be considered City of Monroe community. Of course, right in between that, you've got a between community that's up and coming. All that. Then you have out here in Good Hope, and you have Social Circle, and you have Jersey. Those are the areas I represent. For me, community like Good Hope has really exploded in population, over the last few years. And I was at a city council meeting a while back, and they were talking about Good Hope, and I said, hey, y'all got to quit letting that secret out of the bag.
That's right. That's right.
But the neat thing about the city of Good Hope is they have adhered and they have held to the 2-acre minimum lot size for building houses inside the city limits of Good Hope, which is really a big deal, and that is awesome. Like Mayor Garrett, Keith Prather, those guys that are leaders in the city of Good Hope, great people. They're doing a great job. I love our community.
Now, I know that's something that's important to you. Can you talk maybe a little bit about that? Why is that such an important issue as you look at kind of the development of Walton County and the fact that we're growing very quickly? Now we've grown as much since 2020 as in the previous 20 years combined. So what's driving that growth, and what are the important things that you kind of want to focus on and continue to focus on as you have in the last few years?
I get that a lot of people want to come to Walton County, and it's great. But, in unincorporated Walton County, we don't have sewer.
Right.
We don't have some of those things, which is a good thing. It's really a good thing. So mainly everything's on septic. And I like the agricultural field because everybody that comes here, they're like, oh, my gosh, I love how it is over there. And everybody wants to be the last one that comes. But then as people come along, they're like, well, hey, what about a 1-acre lot? What about a 1-acre lot with a 25 or, a 40% green space, to allow you to continue to condense it and condense it and condense it. Well, what that allows for is a lot more houses. When you allow for a lot more houses, as you can look at your county taxes, they wind up going up. The purpose of them going up is you have to provide more services. It's like having folks over to your supper table at night. If it's only you and your family, your bill's going to be here, but if you invite over the rest of the family and a few more friends, the feed bill's going up.
That's right.
And that's sort of what we've seen the last few years in Walton County.
It really is interesting that people tend to, they kind of want to have their cake and eat it too. I mean, they want to see development happen. They move to an area and they go, oh, this is a wonderful community. But then they think if they change the underlying fundamentals of that community, that you can have massive growth, but that community stay the same. And that's not really true, is it?
No, it's really not. If we just adhere to the standards that are in place, like out here in unincorporated Walton County, it's a 2-acre lot size minimum. Well, then everybody, like I mentioned before, they want to come in and they're like, oh, well, we want a little bit smaller lot, or we want a little bit this. So there's nothing wrong with people asking for that, but it doesn't always mean you have to grant it, especially in unincorporated areas of this community.
And I think it is good for development. The right kind of development is a good thing. To see, a few more houses here and there is great, but it is important to understand that, if you come to a place like Walton, because Walton really is special, and we got a special county.
Absolutely.
We got some great people here. We still have some wonderful, wonderful communities, and if you say this is a great place, so we want to allow more people to come, your impetus for that, your motivation may be great, but you can't allow that kind of influx to happen, as we've seen with some once great communities over in Gwinnett, our county, one county over. You can't see that kind of rapid growth and be able to maintain any kind of community consistency.
I completely agree. It's like when people come here, everybody that everybody has this thought process that you can just stop growth. You can't stop growth. Number one, it's illegal. Number two, it's just not going to happen. But you can navigate it. And in navigating that and adhering to the standards we have in place of a 2-acre minimum lot size out here in unincorporated Walton County, it'll definitely, down the road, you're going to see where it's going to be a lot better for the community as a whole.
And Lee, wouldn't you agree we're actually in a great position as a county? I mean, there are a lot of counties across the South that are seeing some effects of recession, or they're seeing people leaving, and they're sort of managing decline. It's a good thing to have to manage these problems, if you will, because they're the problems of a successful growing place, but it still means we got to keep, both feet on the ground when it comes to looking at these problems.
For sure. I mean, one of the things here in Walton County, we have a 3.28% unemployment rate. That's pretty good. It's a lot better than the national average.
It's amazing.
Our average household mean here is a little over $82,000, which is right at $3,000 higher than what your national average is. Those are good things. They're definitely good things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, you are listening to The Marc McMain Show. I'm your host, Taylor Hawkins. We're going to be right back after this short commercial break to finish our interview and conversation with Lee Bradford, Walton County District 4 Commissioner, who's running for re-election in this current race. Don't go anywhere.
Around here, there are 4 things folks hold close: faith, family, friends, and their Fords. That's what Loganville Ford is built on. We believe in treating people right, working hard, and standing behind every handshake. Because this isn't just where we sell cars, it's where neighbors help neighbors, and relationships matter more than numbers. Loganville Ford, built on faith, driven by family, surrounded by friends, and proud to represent Ford. LoganvilleFord.com.
Storm damage can shorten the life of your roof, and here at Joshua 19 Roofing, we make sure your home stays protected. We're more than just a roofing company servicing Georgia. We're committed Christians called to serve God by helping others. After this year's wind and hail storms, we've helped dozens of homeowners just like you start the insurance process for a full roof replacement. Visit Joshua19roofing.com or call 770-701-9970 to schedule your completely free roof inspection and mention the Marc McMain Show for a $150 credit towards qualifying roofs.
It's family fun every Saturday night at the Winder Barrel Speedway in Winder. Gates open at 4 p.m. and the green flag drops at 7 p.m. Don't miss the excitement of the greatest show on dirt as drivers buckle up, get door to door, and bumper to bumper that take that checkered flag. It's the Winder Barrel Speedway, 330 Donahue Road in Winder. Call 770-867-6327 or go to winderbarrelspeedway.com. It's the place to be on Saturday night.
If you're selling or buying a home, you should call AMPM Septic to inspect your septic tank. This could save you on costly repairs. AMPM pumps your tank, fixes septic alarms, drain lines. They can fix any problem you're having with your septic tank. Call 770-231-7979. They do inspection letters. AMPM is family owned and operated, licensed and insured company. Call David for all your septic needs. 770-231-7979.
Folks, welcome back. It's the Marc McMain Show. I'm your host, Taylor Hawkins, and we are talking to Walton County Commissioner, District 4 seat incumbent Lee Bradford, a friend of mine who's done a fantastic job in his position as county commissioner. Now, Lee, we were talking during the break about the importance of having good, solid folks in place, and you were mentioning some folks that you think are important for people to know about in our community. What were some of those?
Oh, absolutely. So I like for people to understand where local governments get their legislative ability from. That's from the state. All that. So the things that the state doesn't take care of, they pass down to your local county commissioners and city councils. Right now, in this upcoming election, we have an opportunity to elect some really great Walton County-minded people to the state legislature. Now, a couple of those folks for me are Marc McMain. Marc's a great guy, true patriot, always involved in the community. He's actually a heck of a karate instructor as well. He
is.
Don't get too close. He's got a roundhouse that'll come around. You got to watch out for it.
That's right.
Hockey and pickleball too. So don't forget.
Man's an all-around
pickleball.
athlete.
Yes.
Man is an all-around athlete.
I can probably send my daughter up there.
May surprise you, Lee. We're actually kind of partial to Marc here in the studio.
Yes, a little.
I like Marc. I like Marc a lot. And, it's one of the things. But I tell you, when it comes to the pickleball, I send my daughters over there. They may school him a little bit, but
I hear you.
we'll see.
I hear you.
I mean, you got to talk a little bit of smack, right?
That's right. That's right. He's got some got some challengers coming in.
Another couple folks like Brett Malden for the State House 114.
Brett is a phenomenal guy.
He is absolutely true Christian conservative. You know, him and his wife Candace are doing a great job raising their family. They actually live in the city limits of Madison there, but he's always in social circle. He's like always around. Like he's so available and so open. Like you look at some of the people's telephone numbers, like the number he puts out is his personal cell phone number that I've had for years.
That's right.
He wants people to be able to get in touch with him, and he really wants to make a difference. And he wants to make sure that what happens here, that we carry that to the state, and that the state doesn't ever make decisions that are going to impact us negatively at the local level. The same thing with Brett Dunn. You know, Brett Dunn is an absolutely outstanding guy as well, asking to serve in the Senate. And both of these guys, they're not running against somebody that's currently in office. You got to think that, hey, Tim Fleming, you know, who currently holds the seat that Brett Malden's asking to serve, you know, he's stepping up and asking to serve, you know, Secretary of State. So Brett didn't just go up there and say, hey, I don't like you. You're sitting in office. I'm going to run against you and beat you. That's not what Brett did.
Yes.
Brett waited for the opportunity and stepped up and did that.
That's right.
The same thing with Brett Dunn. You know, Brian Strickland is stepping up to ask to serve as Attorney General. He waited for that seat to vacate, and then he stepped up and he's asked to serve that. They didn't say, hey, you're doing a terrible job, because really both those guys were doing a great job. They've just stepped up and asked to grow, so we really have some great upcoming leaders that are asking to serve.
We do. And keep in mind the fact that Marc is running for his Senate seat.
Absolutely.
Because
Bill Cowser just stepped up.
That's right.
And he's vacated the seat. So all three of these guys aren't guys that say, hey, I want to go over there and overturn the apple cart. These are guys saying, hey, I want to continue to grow in the direction we've been going and move forward with it.
And this is an important point, Lee, because unfortunately, in our modern era, people appeal more to emotions so often than they do to intellect, to actual rational decision making.
Sure.
And I think that, you know, there's a lot of people who get involved, and I love their motivation, but sometimes their choice of who they want to run against or what position they want to fill is much more based off of kind of the emotion of the moment, or even potentially self-serving ego, than it is where have they been doing the job, where are they best qualified, and is there an area they can actually increase the capacity of that office by stepping into place.
Oh, for sure. Like a lot of times what you'll find is you'll have local influencers or people that want to be influencers, that they want to pick their candidate, and they're like, hey, you know, you need to step up and you need to run for this position. Like, and I'm one of the guys from day one. I've never taken a campaign contribution from anybody.
Right.
I don't want to owe anybody any favors. Like, I work for the district and the people in it, not the special interest, not anything else, just the district. That's always been really important to me. So it's definitely, you know, some of the other candidates, like I said, running, they're going to be great. One of the things is I like people in office that don't like tax increases. I feel like the people's money belong in their pockets, not the government's.
And, you know, if I had to bet, Lee, I would say that the vast majority of the people listening to this radio show right now fully agree with you. I know I sure do.
Well, absolutely they should, because, you know, a lot of times it winds up becoming a spending problem.
That's right.
Things of that nature, rather than, hey, you know, we need to live within our means. There's so many people, when you go out and knock on doors and you meet with people, you drive past the outside of a house and it doesn't look like there's really anything going on. But when you stop and you speak to them and they open the door and you realize what's going on inside of their homes, it can be heartbreaking. Like when you speak to widows that are like, hey, this recent tax increase, and Lee, I know you didn't vote for it, but this tax increase has really hurt. Like, I'm considering having to sell my home because it's an 80-some-odd-year-old widow that doesn't have any additional help, that's on a fixed income, that, like, it is what it is. An extra few $100s there is a lot to them.
It is.
It is a whole lot. And you actually have seniors in the community that are in their 80s that are taking care of their children that are in their 50s because they have, like, been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and things of that nature. And, I mean, that's a lot. When you see that going on, it's just so humbling to realize how good you actually have things, but it also opens your eyes to what you can do to help.
That's right. That's right. It's one of the reasons why I've appreciated you, Lee, because it's not just a you know, a sketch out math equation on the back of a napkin for you in terms of, you know, raising taxes or what does this county need. Like, you actually consider the impact to the folks who live here and to the people who will be paying those taxes, and that means a lot. I really appreciate that.
Sure.
Now, looking ahead, where do you want Walton County to be in 5 to 10 years?
Ooh,
and how do you factor that into your sort of decision making as you look at things like tax increases and future development, things like that?
I don't foresee any tax increases coming from me. Like, I believe in us living within bounds. You know, there's always a growth in the digest and so forth, which, you know, can compensate for some of the growth in government, because you actually have a rate of inflation that, you know, has been high for a little while, you know, so things cost more. It's like we all see when we go to the grocery store, things cost a little bit more. You know, like look at fuel prices right now. I mean, my truck's a diesel. You know, we've been averaging about $5 a gallon, which is so
it hurts.
It does, you know, and you wind up seeing that, but you have to forecast that and take that into account for the community that you serve. If you're dealing with that, then that means other local people are dealing with that. So there's some things sometimes we can just go without. You know, we don't have to build that next building for the county. We can hold off on it for a little bit. There's so many things that we can shape and guide that internally to where we can keep it within bounds. You just have to want to.
Yeah.
And community input really helps with that. I love hearing from the community when they tell me, hey, Lee, what do you think about this? You know, what direction do you see that we're going there? In the next 5 to 10 years, if we continue to navigate the growth closer to the 2-acre lots and above, then it won't be near as bad as if you turn around and you have to turn around and you just continue to slice and dice and get smaller and smaller and smaller lots, because that'll mean more and more and more people. And you know who that really affects? It affects the school systems. You know, the school systems, they wind up, you know, their tax rate's a little bit more, but they get affected directly by the decisions that your county commissioners and your city councils make. So what I mean by that is saying, hey, when the city of Monroe decides to allow for an apartment complex, well, guess what? That's a direct impact to the local school system.
It is, and I think a lot of people will move into an area because it has a great local school system, and then perhaps not understand the decisions that go into the creation of why that area is great, why that education system is great, and what will happen, what the problematic consequences will be if you change those underlying things. Folks, you're listening to the Marc McMain Show. I'm interviewing Lee Bradford. Lee, we only just have a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask, first of all, you said you had a couple of things that you wanted to highlight that are happening here in the community. Let's hit those real quick, and then I got one more question for you.
I do. So a couple of things I'd really like to give a big shout out. We have a local ice cream store that has just moved in Social Circle. It's called Ida Claire. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely so good. So y'all, just to give y'all a tidbit of what they offer down there, I brought y'all some banana cream pie ice cream. I brought y'all some Munchie Madness. I brought y'all some This Just Got Serious, and I brought you some Exhausted Parent.
Man, those sound amazing and interesting all at the same time. I look forward to trying those. You heard us talking about that at the top of the hour too, folks.
Absolutely, and they're at 136 Sycamore Street in Social Circle. By all means, they're open from 11 to 9 each day. Great family-owned business. Meredith Oliver and her family did a good job coming in there, renovating what used to be the old Georgia Power building.
Yep.
Down there in town, and it's a great little setup. A couple other things coming up. The Dawson Masonic Lodge tomorrow. They're having their annual clay shoot down at Old Hudson Plantation. You're welcome to show up. The registration's at 8 o'clock. Shoot starts at 9. All that, bring a team, bring whatever it might be. You can actually come down and shoot just on your own if you want to.
Bet that'll be fun.
It'll be a lot of fun. Another thing coming up, Bethel Baptist Church, which is where we go to church at, over at 999 Bethel Church Road here in Good Hope, Georgia. There are vacation Bible schools coming up, July 19th through the 22nd. It'll be 5:30 to 8 o'clock at night. And the theme this year is Emerald Crossing from Answers in Genesis.
Oh, that's awesome. Answers in Genesis is a phenomenal organization. They've got some great curriculum for kids and adults.
They do.
So that's awesome. That's really encouraging.
It's going to be great.
Good. Well, I appreciate you highlighting those. You know, we have we've been talking about, we've got a great community here in Walton County, and always stuff going on, always stuff happening, and some great businesses, just like I Declare, that the ice cream shop you were highlighting. And so I appreciate you mentioning those. Now, one quick question before we close. What do you think success would look like for you over your time in office? As you're looking back, you've served faithfully for years up to this point. You've kept your word to the people of this community. You've not voted for tax increases. What do you think in the future, looking back, would you classify as success?
Ooh, so success, number one would be my daughter Bella Rose. Her graduating from Piedmont here in 2 years. She just got started with nursing school.
Oh, that's awesome.
That'll be a big success. It may be a little bit of lighten of the burden on the payroll for me. That would be outstanding. But success can be measured so many different ways by different people. But to keep Walton County unified, to bring people together, to lower taxes would be a success in any opportunity. And just for us all to come together as a community and just do a better job of caring for and helping one another. That's success to me.
I think that's a great definition.
And when it comes to like what I want the outcome of the election and everything to be, it's God's plan. I want God's plan to turn out. I never pray for anyone. Hey, I pray for something directly. I pray for God's plan to prevail.
Amen. Amen. That is the best that we can hope for. And folks, we've got a lot of elections moving forward. You heard me mention at the top of the hour. I'll give it one more encouragement for you as we close here. Please do make a plan to go vote. Go to the Secretary of State's My Voter page, download your sample ballot, analyze the candidates on that ballot, research their positions, and please be involved. It is a talent, if you will, if you think about the parable of the talents. It is a responsibility that God has given to the people of this nation and the people of this community to choose our elected leaders, and we should not take that lightly. So make a plan to go vote. Commissioner Lee Bradford, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Give our listeners a closer look both at the challenges and the opportunities facing Walton County here. We really appreciate your service, and we will be watching closely as the county continues to grow and evolve.
Thank y'all. I surely appreciate y'all having me. And going back to the going to vote, the registered voters in Walton County is a little over 76,000 people. And in the last election, the November election, just over 13,000 people voted.
That's right. That's right. And it's a trend we've seen, and it's amazing how much increase each one of you listening to the sound of my voice, your vote has, because other people don't go vote. So please make a plan to be involved. And Commissioner Bradford, really appreciate you being on here and joining the show. Folks, you're listening to the Marc McMain Show. I am your host, Taylor Hawkins. Come back and join us tomorrow, and join us next week as well as we seek to continue to bring you informative, engaging issues that matter. Take care.